Hello, everybody. Welcome. So glad to have you all here. We are just about getting ready to kick off. Let me get my notes up and then we'll get going. All right. So hi, everybody. This is the Product Expert series of webinars that we run here at ProdPad. It's a series of webinars. We always record them, and there's always a mixture of different presentations and firesides that we have. And we always have a mixture of different experts who come join us here. It's always with this focus on them bringing their insights and their expertise to the table, their experiences. So there's always with the focus on the content, the learning, and the sharing. So today is going to be recorded, and it's going to be shared with you. It's going to be up on our YouTube channel and up on the same page where you registered for this. You will get a chance to ask questions today as well. So you can use the Q&A section, which is the preferable way to drop in your questions, but also feel free to use the chat to drop in your thoughts about what we're talking about here today. I'm going to be trying to keep on top of both these things best I can and make sure that we're seeing everything what everyone's talking about. Now, a little about ProdPad before we get started. Now, this is a tool that was originally built by myself and my co-founder, Simon, when we were both product managers ourselves. We needed tools to do our own jobs as product people. We needed something to keep track of experiments we were running in order to hit the business objectives that we were given and in order to solve our customers' problems, and basically to keep tabs on all the ideas and feedback that made up our backlog. So building ProdPad gave us control and organization and transparency. And so it wasn't long before we started sharing it with other product people around us. And so today it's used by thousands of teams around the world. So it's free to try. And we even have a sandbox mode where it has example product management data. So you can see how lean roadmaps and OKRs and experiments and everything else fits together in a product management space. And our team is made up of product people. So start a trial today and then get in touch and let us know your feedback. We'd love to hear from you. Now, let's start jumping into the guts of today. So I'm really happy to introduce Christina Wodtke, who I know through the Mind the Product world. A lot of that I've been involved with. Mind the Product is one of the founders. Christina has worked with Mind the Product as a speaker and workshop presenter and general just friend of the product community, really. We last got a chance to hang out in Hamburg for the MTP Engage conference there when Christina was the closing keynote speaker with a fiery talk called The Knowing Doing Gap, or I like the subtitle, How Agile, Lean, and Now OKRs Went from Useful to Stupid. So Christina is a product expert and she's author of Radical Focus, which is now in its second edition, which I've heard is much more fleshed out. If you've read the first one, definitely pick up the second one. I definitely recommend reading it. The first one was revelationary for me. And also The Team That Managed Itself, which I've got right here as well. She's had a brilliant career involving work with LinkedIn, MySpace, Zynga, Yahoo, and others. She's founded 3 startups, an online design magazine called Boxes and Arrows, and co-founded the Information Architecture Institute. And she's currently a lecturer at Stanford in the HCI group in the computer science department. So, brilliant career, as I said. Everyone, welcome. Christina, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be talking to you again, Janna. Hamburg was so long ago.
It was, yeah. I've had a week off and a move since then. My entire Zoom background has changed and it's all out of sorts. So good to see you again here. And I love that people are already saying that they've read Radical Focus V2. Somebody said that Boxes and Arrows changed their life. So great cred right there. So again, thanks so much for coming in to join us here today. And one of the things that I've loved about your writing is you write your books in the form of fables, like The Team That Managed Itself. You've got this story about the gaming company. You've got Radical Focus, which is a fable. It's a story. It makes them really digestible and enjoyable. Like, how did you come to this form of writing?
I've always loved fiction my whole life, and I read so much fiction. And then I read the Patrick Lencioni books, of course, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, which I highly recommend, and Death by Meeting. They're both very good. And so I was thinking, I want to write a book about OKRs. I hadn't written a book in 10 years. I had written a book on IA back in the old days, but I wanted to write about it because I found it so incredibly useful. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to write a book about an acronym. Who's going to read that? My God. So I thought, let's make it fun to read. Let's tell a story. And it's been amazing to see how it affects people, because not only do they get the ideas, they get them in context of work, but they learn other things that I didn't even mean to say. Like when you're reading a nonfiction book, you're like, do this, like I'm reading Inspired second version right now. But with fiction, people have come up to me and said things like, I had to fire someone. And then in Radical Focus, you gave me the script for it because the CEO fires someone. And there's all these little things that come up that you didn't even realize you were putting in there, little best practices. So I wrote the fable for Radical Focus. I kept it really simple. I would say Team That Manages Itself is actual fiction. Like if you want to know what it's like to work in a game company, not all game companies, some place like EA or Zynga where it's a little more intense, I think it's a decent representation of it. So say my friends as well, so who worked in game companies. But it's more important to realize that I wanted to really show how hard it is to be a product manager and how you never have that wonderful mentor that comes down and says, here's how to do it, and now your life is better. Instead, Allie, the product manager and Team That Manages Itself is like, okay, I found something over here and I found something over here and somebody said this and I'm putting it together. I wanted to capture that putting together a solution for yourself, because I think in reality, nobody's stuff really works for you out of the box. You have to build it and change it and mod it, like IKEA hacks, I guess. That's what being a product is about.
Yeah, you're right. It does actually really capture that. It captures some of the chaos that we have as product managers, the real life situations where it's like, actually, you know what, you might have gathered all these frameworks, you might have all these tools, you might know how Scrum works and sprints work and all this other stuff. You might know what a roadmap should look like, but bam, you've just been hit by reality. Does all this work when you're faced with this situation at the workplace? And it really helps when somebody's actually showing them the way, showing them the script.
Absolutely. And I think I've had some people say that it's comforting to know that you're not the only one who's trying to dig their way through all that chaos and nonsense. So
yeah, absolutely. And you said it's a book about a little acronym, 3 letters. Who's going to read that? But these 3 letters have been transformative to the way that companies work. When did you first get introduced to OKRs? Like, how did you get bitten by the OKR bug?
Zynga was an OKR, it was a John Doerr company, right? And we used OKRs. The Foursquare is a mod of the way Cityville did their OKRs, which was quite good. And so I started with that. And then I left Zynga, rage quit it if you want. And I spent about 6 months trying to figure out, like, what am I going to do with my life? What do I actually want? I don't want to do another industry job. LinkedIn had just had their IPO and I had a little bit of money, not enough to change my life, but enough to buy myself a pause, if you know what I'm saying. And I thought, okay, I'll do some consulting. And I did consulting with some startups and they were just such a mess. They were tripping over their own feet. So I was like, why don't we use OKRs to give them that sort of focus? And it worked really well. And I ended up using it on my own life as well to try to figure out who I was going to be in this post-industry life. And it worked extraordinarily well for my personal life. In fact, I realized the other day that I've been doing personal OKRs for like 10 years, every single week, sending a weekly update to my coach saying, this is what I'm trying to do. These are the things I'm trying this week. These are the things that are also coming up. Yeah, it's incredible. I keep thinking for the 10-year anniversary of personal OKRs, I should write them up again, because that's how did I go from a general manager at Zynga to a lecturer at Stanford? It was constantly going, I want joy in my life. I want to optimize for joy. I'm tired of optimizing for just cash or just a sexy title. In the Valley, everybody's obsessed with titles. Yeah. And I was like, I just want to be happy. And it led me to CCA where I was happy. And then when the Stanford thing showed up, I was like, God, you don't mess with happy, but it is a better commute because I do live in Palo Alto. So I went for it and I got it. And I've been insanely happy at Stanford since, because basically if you teach there, you're learning every day. It's just so incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what you've achieved there, not just for your own personal achievements for using the OKRs, but the fact that you actually used OKRs for 10 years. Most companies can't stick with them for more than 2 quarters. I think that's an achievement in itself. And actually Michael, thanks so much. You're actually sharing Christina's work on writing about a personal OKR. So everyone check out those links. Definitely some stuff in there. And Christina, if you want to write updates on how that's been going, I'm sure everyone's going to want to read about that stuff because it's valuable. And I don't think other people have made it that far. I think you're definitely at the forefront of that.
I was talking to another friend of mine. So I created a little support group of 4 women who I send my OKR reports out to, and they send theirs sometimes. And I was talking to one who has been sticking with it pretty well. And she pointed out that we both have ADHD. and that we desperately need some kind of structure to keep us pointed in one direction. And I thought, yeah, it's not that I've been good at staying at OKRs. It's like, without OKRs, I just spend the whole week like, I don't know what I'm doing. What's going on? So just, I need something that keeps me pointed in a good direction.
I love that. And I love that hat tip to ADHD. If anybody here has ADHD, stay tuned until the end. I've got a little bit of an announcement for you there. But I think OKRs are actually useful for companies as well, because I think companies have ADHD, this lack of focus and this ability to end up running off in different directions, because what you end up with are people who one person wants to go this way and one person wants to go this way. And one person thinks that they know the answer, which leads them off in this direction. Somebody else knows the answer, which leads them off in this direction. And the core purpose of them is really to give them that centralized direction, that everyone pointing in the same direction. Is that right?
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. I think the reason people go, I want to go this way and I want to go that way, is because there isn't that clarity. There isn't that strategy. Nobody knows where they're going. And if they do know, they're not communicating it properly. And people always seem to complexify everything. So the executive team comes up with OKRs, but then they really are OKRs. There's like 15 of them and they're pointing all these different directions, and people just look at it and go, I cannot be reading all of that. It's too much. If you can just, that's why I called it radical focus instead of a guide to OKRs or whatever, because I think it's absolutely critical to make sure that you have at least one message that says, we are going to do this, full stop. And then you can have 14 after it, but make sure there's one that's like, this is happening this quarter period or this year.
Yeah. And so what does radical focus mean to you instead of just focus?
I guess it really means to me, everybody talks about focus, and sometimes we get it when we're in a flow state, maybe we're working on something, but it's really hard to maintain focus in life. Life's full of shiny objects, right? It's like, oh, I could do this, or I could do this. Even in my life, somebody mentioned that I was talking to a friend at another university, and they're like, oh, you could make the same amount and be a tenure track. So maybe you should consider that. And I could spend a lot of time looking into it and digging into it, but I have OKRs and I can look at them and go, this is what my life is really about. And then I can evaluate whether or not I should be spending time on it. So radical focus is being incredibly crisp and clear what your goals are, and what I call touching them every week. By touching them, opening them up, looking at them, asking yourself, is this still true? Am I going to be able to accomplish this? How confident am I that I'm going in the right direction? What am I trying to do? And that's why you only have a couple things you do each week, because you got to spend the rest of the week driving the kid to school and getting the car renewed and getting the dishwasher fixed. I'm just listing my life. So how do you actually do the things that really matter, but they aren't urgent? And OKRs work really well for me that way. I just know that every single Monday at 8 a.m., I'm going to be looking at my week going, I got to do something that helps me move forward. And I think companies are the same way.
Yeah,
absolutely, 100%.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And so in your years of working with companies who are implementing and using OKRs, you've taught it, you've trained in it and everything, you must have seen some companies take to it and some companies not take to it. What are some of the OKR faux pas, the gotchas that you're seeing companies trip up over?
I wrote mistakes in OKRs ages ago, and I feel like there's a new generation of them after Measure What Matters went out and managed to reach a lot of enterprise companies as opposed to little startups. The people who are most successful is always going to be a very small company with a single product or a small team with a product, right? Anytime you're trying to get bigger stuff happening, it just can get very messy. Inspired says just use them at the company, top of the company level, and at the product team level, and nothing else. And I think that's really good advice. Originally, I was like, individual OKRs are okay. And now I'm like, no, I've never seen that work ever in any company. You can do personal OKRs for yourself, but that's between you and your God. You can decide, is this for me or is this not for me? But I don't think companies should be telling people how to live their lives, because I have literally seen companies that are making you set very personal individual OKRs. And I'm like, no. And then other companies that are saying, you are responsible for these big company metrics. And as one person, like, you can't do very much as one person unless you're like maybe an SEO hacker that's been hired, growth hacker that's been hired to do something. Most of the time, most people are so interdependent that OKRs at the individual level just don't make any sense. And then people go, how do we do performance reviews? And I'm like, how have you done them in the past? Right? It's so weird. That's why I ended up writing Team That Manages Self, because I was so sick of it. Yes, Tom, I'm sorry, the chat pops up. But yes, there's software people are the worst because they're like, oh my God, there's so many reasons they're the worst.
So just to give some context to people listening in, Tom pointed out that unfortunately there's a whole raft of software vendors selling stuff that encourages that sort of daft personal OKR stuff, which absolutely, yeah. So Christina, go. What's your take on this?
Oh my God, yes. This is just, I tell my customers, every single piece of software is a point of view that's been put into amber and been frozen. And the problem then is that you, by buying the software, you're buying into their point of view, which may not be your point of view. So what I tell people is please use Google Sheets, use Docs, use whatever. I've seen people use Trello successfully. Just use what you got until you have a rhythm. And once you have a rhythm, then you're going to be able to look at these OKRs and go, I don't want that. Or, ooh, that's close. But you got to figure out how our OKR is going to work before you spend, good Lord, so much money on a piece of software. So that's the tricky part. So I always think, get your process right first. And I think it's true for ProdPad probably, right? Like get your process good and then look at the piece of software and say, are they doing it better than us? Are they doing it worse than us? Are they just like aliens? And a lot of people don't ever get the software, but I felt that way because BetterWorks in particular just was really, I was like, this is product management. This isn't product management. This is project management. It's not OKRs. I didn't even know what it was. I was looking at this going, you don't need this. No, I don't know what this is for. And I know a lot of people like it and have bought it, but it doesn't really fit into my worldview of OKRs, which considering I've been helping people be successful with OKRs for a very long time, I don't know. But the software people are really problematic also because they tend to add features all the time, right? Like we need more features because more features and people will buy it. And the buyer is not the user. And so some CTO is looking at these things or HR person and saying, this one does so many things and this one does only a few things. But what if only doing a few things was the right idea? So there's a wonderful podcast I just started listening to by Katie Milkman called Choiceology. And the one I'm listening to right now talks about how human beings have this cognitive bias against taking things away. They did a study with Legos where they had this platform that was crooked and you had to make it balanced and everybody added Legos. Nobody took them away, but you could have taken just one Lego away and it would have balanced. And I think that's what product managers and software creators get into is they're just like adding and adding. But sometimes the answer is take as much away as possible. And the thing about OKRs is they are very simple and they're very hard. And so people keep trying to add stuff, do this and do this, but no, it's like eat less and exercise more. You just have to focus. You have to stay simple. You have to make hard decisions. This literally is more important than that. And then they'll work. And if you don't have an appetite for making that hard prioritization decision, it's not going to work for you.
Yeah, I often find it easier to get people's heads around OKRs by taking away the acronyms, taking away the objectives and key results framing, and just saying, what is it that success looks like? Like, how do you know your company's doing good things? Is it increasing revenue? Like we're profit making? Yeah, okay, probably increasing revenue, and probably you want some market share, or maybe you want some user growth or other things like that. And then how are you measuring that, right? How do you know that it's actually going in the right direction? Those are your key results. And generally speaking, if you break it down that way, they were already doing that anyways. Probably in some way, somewhere in their business. It's just about who had that information and whether they're tracking it and whether they're doing it on a quarterly cadence or on a whenever they wanted to cadence, which could be fine for them if that's what worked.
I think when Measure What Matters came out, I don't know if you've looked at the book, but on the last page it says, for more information, read Radical Focus. That's it. And when
that's
people
beautiful.
reach out, I know, I'm like, thank you.
That's beautiful.
But it means we get a lot of these folks from regular middle America or Europe or Asia and just the big companies, the older companies who are trying to figure out what does this have to do with us? And they're trying to do OKRs and they haven't instrumented yet. They don't have metrics. They barely have any numbers. They don't even know how to start collecting numbers. Their teams are all interwoven. Everybody's on like 14 different projects at once. They have coordination issues. Often they have a culture of fear and no psychological safety. And I'm like, no, don't use them. Don't use them. See, I teach for a living. I don't need to sell OKRs. I don't need the consulting work. So I can just say, nope, not for you. Here's your homework. Go figure this out instead. Go check out Mind the Product. Get your product development process sorted first. And then they just go and call it OKRs and do whatever they want anyway. So
yeah, one of the big questions that I often get from organizations, big organizations, the ones with all these complex hierarchies and team structures and people working on a million different things, is how does this all work when I've got dependencies? This is dependent on this and this is dependent on the other. But the way that I always phrase it is OKRs will help with that, really. It should help, as you say, quite strongly. And you mentioned it in this, like OKRs cascade. You should very clearly point out which things leads into which other things. But when it comes to dependencies, like you've just got to communicate them. There's no shortcut. There's no simple way of just saying, you know what, this piece is, we're just going to not communicate this or anything like that.
oh my God, yes, Janna, so true. Is because this is another thing people mess up. They think of OKRs as this giant system. It's not. It's just this little tiny goal setting thing to make sure you don't forget about the important strategic things. It's not, it doesn't have anything to do with dependencies. Dependencies are irrelevant to the OKRs. They don't care. They're like, we're going to try to do this, and this is the metrics we want to move. Done.
Yeah.
You guys get to figure out dependencies. And that's when I'm like, you know what, you need product management. Like I point them at you guys and I point them at Bruce. I'm like, go look at these videos and do that first, because OKRs can't fix that. They're just not built for that. And then of course, we have other people are saying, oh no, they're magic. They do everything. Just if you put OKRs in, everything will get awesome. And I'm like, no, OKRs are really good at showing you your dysfunctions though. Yeah. I'm like, oh, look, we try to do OKRs and it turns out you don't have psychological safety. Oh, we try to do OKRs and guess what? You're not working agilely.
Yep.
It's like a test, but mostly the results are negative.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? It's the radical focus that OKRs insist upon that actually make the difference. I've got a story for you. Going back some years in ProdPad land, we were a very small company. It was just me and Simon at first, and we were growing. Product manager was signing up, and we're like, this is great. And we hit a point when we started hiring in people, and we got our first office, and we started spending money on ads and on events and other things. And we called it, in hindsight, I call it the year of faffing about. And British terms, it means doing stuff and not actually getting anywhere, right? Whereas before we were hyper focused on just building and telling people about it. We started faffing about because we were training people and we were onboarding and we were getting an office and all this other stuff happened. And our numbers, it showed, you could see it went from growth to flatlined. And we looked at it going, oh, this isn't good for morale, growth, anything. And it was by it wasn't fully OKRs. It's in hindsight what we could have called something similar to OKRs, is setting that radical focus and saying, here's our top line objective and here's how we're measuring it. We just created an entire quarter where we just focused on that one objective, and it turned the company around. It got us out of that period and allowed us to grow again. And we actually write about that period and the experiments we ran to improve it actually happened to be around our trial conversion, because we'd just done a bad rewrite of our app and needed to redo the trial onboarding part. But it's that focus that spotted that and got that going. But it was basically, it wasn't the objectives per se, it was the focus that it made us do, that it forced us, it was the focus that it made us have, because it made us drop everything else to just look at this one focus, this area of focus.
Absolutely. And I like to tell this story from the personal OKRs experience, because clients don't always want you to tell their stories of how dysfunctional they are. So funny that. So
I've got stories I can share if you've got anything you've got.
So there's me, and in the group, there's another woman, and she will call her Ms. Precise. And she was all about getting things done. And she would put her priorities as in a certain percentage and just super measuring everything like crazy. And then I had this other woman, so I will call her Miss Getting There. And she'd be like, I don't know, I haven't really set my OKRs yet, but I'm thinking this because I don't really like this and I'm unhappy with this part of my life. And there's me in the middle, very lightweight, but still fairly precise. Miss Precise crashed and burned after about a year. She got to the year and like, boom, she's just too much overhead. And Miss, I don't know, she changed her life. She went from being a product manager to being a product management coach to an executive coach, got Gestalt coaching, and is now making way more money than me, helping executives, which allows her to help women and people of color in particular, and LGBTQ people. And it's just amazing. And so the moral of the story is all you have to do is every Monday say, what am I actually trying to do? Because those emails would say, oh yeah, I should be thinking about this. I'm not happy with my life. I'm not happy with where I'm going. And I really think that's so super valuable. And companies do that. Just say, what are we trying to do every Monday? And what are we going to do about that? And you'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about something in the team that managed itself about, no, it wasn't in the team that managed itself. Maybe it did. It was in the Mind the Product talk, the Engage talk. It was about having temporal landmarks, right?
So good. Yes. So I got this from Dan Pink's book, When, and he talks about temporal landmarks. And temporal landmarks are things like New Year's Eve or your birthday, especially big birthdays like 16 or 50, ones that you're like, ah. And so these are things that will make you stop and look up. And therefore, those are particularly good moments to build your rituals on. So with OKRs, they're best quarterly for a variety of reasons. 3 months is long enough to make progress, but not long enough to get stuck in one direction. But also all businesses have that quarterly rhythm. You might not see it as much if you're like a designer, engineer, individual contributor, or you might, but the quarterly rhythm is really good. So you say, what are we doing with this quarter at the beginning? Open the quarter with a question and close the quarter with an answer, hopefully, which is it worked, it didn't work, it was a good idea, it was a bad idea, whatever. And then weeks are wonderful temporal landmarks. Mondays and Fridays are super valuable because Mondays, you're like, oh, even if you've worked all weekend, I know you entrepreneur types, but there's something about a Monday that says, okay, what am I really doing? Let's get down to business. And then Friday, you can close. I'm a big fan of opening and closing things. I always close the week when I'm teaching, which means tidy up the desk, look if anything's on fire, and then lock the office and walk away. And I have an office at Stanford, so first time in my career. So,
I love that. I have something similar. We do something here at ProdPad called Tidy Time. And basically, we've given everybody a couple hours in their last hours of the week, generally Friday between 3 and 5 or whenever. And it's literally to clear out your inbox and tidy up your desktop, do the install on your computer that it's been asking you to do all week, just whatever it takes to like be ready for Monday. So you're not just constantly having all this admin overhead, this admin debt, as I say.
Yeah, not only that, the celebrations on Fridays are huge. There's an instinct to skip that part, which is what have we done? But if you think about it, OKRs are always stretch goals. I've had a lot of conversations with people. Should they always be moonshot goals? Sometimes it can be yoga stretch goals. I've started using that phrase, which is with yoga, you're stretching till you feel the stretch, but don't hurt anything. Don't want to break anything.
Right.
So some companies that aren't used to stretching or it's been penalized, not making your goals, you can work yoga stretch. And then other companies, moonshots are fine.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a little aside, but
no, useful.
I know one company that found out about OKRs. They're about 6 weeks into the quarter. So they were like, let's wait till the next quarter to set them. But they started the company celebrations. And then a couple of weeks later, the CEO was like, that was amazing. Like just the celebrations alone. So everybody would get together. And I don't want to propagate the alcohol world, but in this case, they were having some beer, having some pizza. People were bragging about what they accomplished this week. And that alone increased velocity of output because people want to be able to have something to brag about. And it connected them with people. Because, we get this thing where there's silos and who's that guy and I'm better than them. But if we're made into a team that holds together and knows you're doing awesome stuff and you're doing awesome stuff and I'm doing awesome stuff and we're going to try and make this thing really happen, that's beautiful. And also coming together in a circle and eating is just such a profoundly human thing. It makes you into a tribe in the small t way. You're connected in a really important way. So I say, yes, have a Friday celebration. Please have it at 4, not at 6. People have lives. They need to go home. There's traffic, but do celebrate. You could even do lunch. Yeah. Just do something to say, isn't it amazing how awesome we are?
Yeah, I love that. That's really good advice. I like that.
Yeah, the thing is, OKRs, it's not about writing good ones. It's about living them. And that's part of living them.
Yeah. And I liked your take on the yoga stretch versus the moonshot. One of the ways that I always translate this setting the objective, setting the KR, right? What you're actually going to say there is It's more about you're setting your x-axis. You're setting what you're actually going to measure yourself on, and you're just trying to create the thing by which your team is going to be able to see your graph going up and to the right by. So if you set something way too high, you're not going to be able to see anything. It's not meaningful. If you set it way too low, you're gonna blow right through that graph. It's not going to be helpful. So really, you're just throwing a ball or a stick as far as you think is reasonable, and then seeing if you can get to it in that time. And it doesn't really matter. It's completely arbitrary, but you're using your best guess. Then your best guess, your first few quarters, is going to be rotten, right? Like, you don't know. It's a guess, but you've just got to forgive yourself and push through, really. And then over time, you'll get better and better at them.
Oh, yes. What people don't realize is estimation is actually a skill. Estimation. I'll make up my own language. It's a skill that you build. You start at being bad at it, but as long as you're making a guess every time you try to estimate anything, including how much can we move this, you get better at it. The other thing I really love about that guessing is that when I started at Stanford, I got real hardcore into the learning science side. And it turns out that if you try to predict something and then you find out the answer, you are going to have much better recall of that information than if you just hear the information. So it's amazing. It's hard science. So when you're making that guess, you're actually increasing the intelligence of the team, which is amazing. I remember at Yahoo, when we first started doing A/B testing, we put bets on what would win. And I don't think we knew it because we're just making it fun, but that actually increased the intelligence. We got really good at making winners in the A/B test.
So introduce OKRs and a gambling ring into your company. You will make your team smarter. I like it. Science.
Gamble with jelly beans, please. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing less. Excellent.
Well, jammy babies. No, what are they called? God damn it. You know what I mean? The Dr. Who thing.
I don't know what you mean. No.
There's a Whovian out there in the chat, probably, who knows what I'm trying to say.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Anybody got her? Drop it into the chat, and yeah, we'll link to it in the transcript. Jam Dodgers. Oh, see, this is my problem. I live here in England, but I am not British. I am Canadian by birthright, so I am not good at the biscuits yet. I almost said cookies and nearly got deported. So Jammy Dodgers, for everybody listening in, are this beloved biscuit cookie thing. I don't get them though. So, and somebody's just telling me that cookies are not the same. So yeah, maybe we'll do another webinar about cookies versus biscuits versus cakes here. It's a whole thing, but we'll get there.
Very close to the discussion of what is the sandwich. So let's move on.
Yeah. Right. Now, actually, when we were setting up this chat, Christina, you said that one thing that you want to talk about, you had some thoughts about, was how product dev has morphed into its own thing. What do you mean by that? What do you mean product dev has morphed into its own thing?
Oh, wow. So sure you don't want more ranting? No. So
I had a feeling this was a rant.
Oh, it's not a rant. It's something I'm really excited by. It's really wonderful. So preparing for the product management class, I look at how people explain things, right? And so I was watching a bunch of videos, reading a bunch of stuff, and I saw both Marty Kagan and Jeff Patton talking about how things have changed. And that really got me thinking. So bear with me for a second. So when TV first started, they did radio plays, but you could see them. And eventually TV figured out what it was as a medium. What are we for? What can TV do that only TV can do? And now we're seeing sort of this amazing, I don't know if renaissance is the right word, but these amazing long form stories like Game of Thrones, because that's what TV can do. It can tell a really long form story visually, and it's fabulous. And then I feel like then podcasts are finally coming into their own. Like, what is a podcast actually going to be? And they said they were going to kill radio with TV. Look, it's back. I'd say podcasts, people like to listen to things. Yeah. So what we saw is we had software and it was new, and the web is sort of this new medium. We're still figuring out exactly what it's for, to be quite honest. You think, but I would say it hasn't really found its form. And the first thing people realized is you could do, the very first thing I think was, you could talk to users and then you could roll out what you learned right away. And designers were doing it. We were doing it back in 1996, 1995, where we would talk to users. Once I had a boss who said, no, we don't have time for that. So I just went to the mall, remember malls, and I did intercepts, and I learned anyway, because just because your boss says we don't have time doesn't mean you can't make it happen. And that was design thinking, or UX design. I'd rather say UX design, because I think that design thinking is not as interesting as design doing. And then we had the agile folks. And they're like, instead of making this monolithic thing, what if we talk to users? And we worked iteratively. What if we talk to users and worked iteratively? And so when product management, I first saw product managers and worked with them, they were always about the domain, but not about process. They didn't give a shit about process. They're like, hey, yeah, you guys will use Agile, whatever you like, but I really want to make sure I'm building the right product for local or the right product for car sales. But Lean changed that. Lean said, you're doing it wrong, right? There's a much safer, less risky way of doing it, the Lean startup movement. And that was the third piece, because every time we talk about technology, we're always saying, yeah, design, engineering, and business. And Lean was the business piece. And when it clicked in, we got this new thing. And that's what Jeff and Marty are talking about, is that there's this new thing where there are product teams, new, and by new, I'm talking longer scales than months, where entire teams, all the core pieces, are working iteratively, reducing risks, running experiments, releasing continuously, continuous discovery. We're seeing it fall into place. And it's really cool. Now, I was bugging Martin, the face of Mind the Product, very often. And he says, I just call it modern product development. I have an art background, and I will tell you, modernism is really old. It doesn't. And then I think about in Paris, the oldest bridge is called the New Bridge, right?
Right, yeah.
Like, let's not use modern or new. And I started referring to them as nimble. I don't know if people like it or hate it, but I'm going to put it out there. Nimble teams are lean, they're agile, they're iterative, they're user-centered. It's flipped into place. And I feel like we now know how to develop things for mobile and for the web. That now that we can do that, I'm really interested to see if we'll start getting things that are just so utterly web. And I think that will be Web3, but not MFTs and distributed. But I get yelled at when I say NFTs are a Ponzi scheme. So we'll see.
Excellent.
Sorry, that was a very long rant, but I'm very excited by this.
And I am too, because what I think we're actually going to start seeing is more and more case studies, more and more proof that this stuff actually works. Because what we've had in the past are disjointed pieces saying, we worked agile for a while, and this is the story we have to tell. And we used lean principles for a while, and this is what we have. And this is our stuff on research, and this is why it worked here. And we used OKRs, and this is how it worked. But when you start seeing entire teams just coming together, naturally using all these pieces, and it just sort of fits, and you go, of course, it seems to make sense. And yeah, we look at it now and just saying, yeah, it's natural product management, it's modern product management, it's the way it should be. But we look at it going, but has it worked? Is it actually working? We'll only know when we see companies do it, pull it together, and then we can retrospectively write the books on it and say, here's a case study of this company did it from beginning to end, didn't have to digitally transform into it, but just was born that way and rocked it. And that's what we need to see, because that's going to beget more and more companies who can do it that way, and not waste resources building it the wrong way.
Here's the question. Like, I've always worked on very good teams. You could say I'm lucky or whatever. Every group, even when I was at Yahoo, they were really good. The team I was on was just amazing. It was run by Jeff Weiner, who went on to be CEO of LinkedIn and took them to the IPO. And I really love it. But the thing is, I didn't even know people were developing it any other way except nimble. Even before there was lean, people were trying to work iteratively, and they're trying to bring user feedback in. And every team I worked on was like that. So we know it works. We actually literally know it works. We've seen these companies, we've seen the Googles and the Airbnbs and such, and they are working this way, often without those labels, or they go, we're agile-ish. I think everybody's agile-ish.
Yeah.
So I think we know it works. I don't think it's an answer for everything. Just because it works in tech doesn't mean it's going to work for railroads. Do we still have railroads? That would be nice. You do. And we don't know if it's going to work for everybody, but because tech always like, oh, this works beautifully, everybody should use it, but often it's not appropriate. But this really works well for technical products. It makes good products, it makes smart products, but it requires you stay user-centered, work iteratively, constantly be testing a hypothesis. It's got these pieces that you have to use and you have to do well. When it comes together, you can be nimble. And once you're nimble, you're allowed to play with OKRs, but not before.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. One of the things that switching to these ways of working requires this mindset shift. And the thing is, if people just have this mindset to begin with, if they're trained in it from university or from before, right, they'd see companies around them being run that way. They grew up with their parents working at companies working that way. It becomes this natural way of working. And soon they're going to be looking at the companies of old, the ones where we started our careers, and going, how did you ever operate that way? We're like, we didn't. You should have seen the waste.
Like, the problem is going to be, how are they going to transform? Like, digital transformation was hard, but this feels like seismic in the change for most companies. I think they have to do what the New York Times did. So I have a story from the beginning of the web. I was part of a consultancy that I founded with a couple other people because I found things, not so much anymore, it's exhausting. And we were consulting with the New York Times, and they hired us because I worked with search at Yahoo and I was a search expert. And they told us what happened. So what happened is they read Innovator's Dilemma. They brought Clayton Christensen in, and he said, you cannot figure out the web, period, unless you build a separate company in a separate building with a separate CEO, and they can build the New York Times web, because otherwise the New York Times, big New York Times, the proper newspaper, will kill you, which was true. When I was there, the circulation department was constantly convinced the web was destroying them. And they're like, we should shut this down. We should make them charge, all this other stuff. And they were protected because they had their own CEO and they worked apart. They were in a separate building. And I think if big companies are going to change, they're going to have to do that. They're going to have to say, okay, we're going to spin you out this little product team that's going to work in a modern fashion and a nimble fashion. And you're going to build these products for us, which then the big company will act as a publisher, a distributor. Because doing it within, I don't even know how to do it. I can't imagine it being possible. So maybe somebody smarter than me will figure it out.
Yeah. No, that's a really good story. Good to hear that. Thanks. And Duncan from the chat was saying, Clayton Christensen was a prophet, such brilliance and humility. So yeah, amen to that.
He's pretty good.
Yeah.
Though eventually the New York Times website people did fold back in, and they're all in a big new building. Just because it was good at one moment in time doesn't mean it's good forever. They brought those insights and that understanding, that technical knowledge back into the company after they'd gotten big enough and strong enough to survive. And how many websites do you go to that are news? Like Washington Post, New York Times, Guardian. That's my list.
Yep. That's fair. That makes sense. Yeah, as somebody in the chat is saying, they spun out and got big enough to challenge the status quo.
Yep. Exactly. They had to be protected while they grew.
Yeah, and this is actually something that I've talked about in some of my talks in the past, is how you can disrupt yourself before other companies do. Like one of the models is to create that incubator, create that startup within yourself, and imagine that startup is there to disrupt you. But of course, they're not going to disrupt you. They're part of you. And so you're actually funding them to work faster than your big company ever could. Because sometimes the only way up is to break out. Break out of that space. And if this little company, this little space that you've created on the cool floor with all the plants and hipster furniture can do it faster, then that's so much better than trying to change the mindset of the people who are sitting at their desks and expecting to work the same way that they always have for the last 20 years. When you're talking about healthcare and media and fintech or finance type spaces, it can be really difficult.
The other thing to think about is there are teams that should be stable. I think of them as nimble teams and stable teams. There are people who should be working like they did, well, maybe not 20 years ago, depending on who they are, but it's maybe the lawyers, maybe they don't change so fast, or I can't say sales because I don't know as much about it as I used to, but maybe sales doesn't change that much. And knowing what are the parts of the business where it's understood, accounting's good choice, it's understood, we know how to do it, it's been pretty optimized. And everybody's like, oh, everything can be optimized. I'm like, but not all at once. So leave them alone, let them be a stable team. And then over here, your nimble team are the ones who are trying to disrupt, change. There's less knowledge. So you have to ask, how much do we know about the space, and not lie to yourself?
Yeah, absolutely.
So not all teams have to be nimble. I don't think so.
No,
not
that's
all
a good point.
OKRs.
No, that's a good point. And actually, somebody's got a question from the audience here. How big is too big for a company to be successful with OKRs? And I guess I can add to that. Is it a function of size, or are there other prerequisites?
Yeah, it really isn't a function of size. It's more a function of, do you have independent groups that are developing product? Those people can have OKRs. If you're super interdependent, you can't. If you don't have psychological safety, you can't, because you have to be able to trust this team. You have to be comfortable saying, this is what I want you to have. These are the metrics I want you to move. Go figure it out. And if you don't trust them, or you can't trust, it's not really going to work. You're not going to get the results you want. Somebody on Twitter said, if you trust me enough to hire me, can you trust me enough to get it right? Which I'm like, if people's hiring processes were more robust, maybe. But that trusting is really hard. Lots of reports, lots of hands off until they've proven they can't do it. You have to have work agilely. You have to be able to release continuously, which a lot of companies still can't do that. They still have the big train, and you have to jump on the big train for the monthly release. You have to be able to have hypothesis. You have to be able to test. Some people are like, don't put that messy test out there. People will think Coca-Cola is building shit products or whatever. Like, no, you have to have some comfort with this way of working. So yeah, until you're nimble, which means working in this iterative, user-centered way, you can't. OKRs aren't going to work for you, I don't think.
Yeah, that's good insight. Yeah, thank you. And somebody else had another question here. Osama asked something quite practical. Is it wrong to have one product level OKR contribute to multiple top level OKRs?
If it works, it's not a religion. There's no wrong or right. There's only things that work better and things that work less better. And if you're in a situation where that's going to work, awesome.
Excellent. I like that. I like that, because so many teams, I think, get really dogmatic about following a particular way, or saying, I read about it in this book, or this is how we did it last quarter. And honestly, it's about what's working for your team, I think. So good to hear that from you.
And it has stopped working, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because some things that worked in the past don't work anymore.
This is the value of retros, right? Actually retroing not just the code that went out, the product pieces that went out, but the processes and how you work together as a team. Are OKRs working for us? Is Lean working for us? And if not, then do something about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it Lean or is it you?
Yeah, no, fair. John's
the biggest mistake people make. Oh, I was just going to say, because you asked me this earlier, is they try to roll OKRs out to everybody in the company all at once.
Yeah.
That is a recipe for disaster. That's a shit show.
Yeah. When in theory it could work. There's no reason it shouldn't be able to work, but it never does. Like, it's just too much change management at the same time.
Nobody spends the time to actually understand what OKRs and what they're doing. They just go, skim, I read an article, let's just do it, everybody at once. And it's like, of course it's going to fail. Of course it's going to be a giant mess. It's confusing to people. I feel so angry sometimes, because people who say they tried to do OKRs, I'm like, which book did you read? Where did you get your information? Who helped you? And it's like, oh yeah, I read a third of Measure What Matters on the Airplane. I'm like, no. It's like, if you're going to put an entire company, especially thousands of people, right? Big companies, through this nonsense, at least somebody should understand it properly and know. And then you run a pilot. I beg people, run a pilot, find your best team, give them the OKRs, best independent, blah, 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 nimble. See, it's easier to say nimble than talk about blah, 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 blah. Find your best, most nimble team and give it to them and say, try this. Here's the right way, best practice, but change it if you need to, if it's not working, and then come back to us and let us know how it went. Oh, it just makes me crazy. It's just, when you look at it logically, of course it's going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
How could it not?
Yeah, it's like rolling out enterprise software. Like, you can't just say, oh, here's everyone's logins, go nuts. Like, they're not going to use it, and then when renewal comes, they're not going to be using it. They're not going to sign up again. You've got to run a pilot program. I like that terminology. You've got to train them up. You've got to check in with them. You've got to have an account manager. What's your take on having a champion or an advocate or a person who's in charge of training and owning the OKR program?
There's always a champion, or else you wouldn't be doing OKRs, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean. I'm sorry. Having some. I think it's a good idea. Originally, I was against it. I was like, everybody should do their own thing with OKRs. But then I realized, unless you have somebody who's going to spend the time to read everything out there, to dig through Mind the Product, to figure out what could go wrong and what the solutions are, you need somebody who has the headspace and the time to do that and really understand it. And they have to be pragmatic. They have to be flexible. They can't be dogmatic. A person like that can be invaluable. They also probably will be doing themselves out of a job, but I'm sure there's a very lucrative job as a consultant after doing that a few times, because you want people to be able to do it without that help. It's not like having whatever your Scrum owner product thing. My brain is blah, blah. Yeah, they're not, it's not a permanent position, but it could be a year-long position easily where they help them get to that place. But then what happens if you get hired and the company isn't ready for it? You know, that I wonder about a lot too.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point.
It's hard.
Yeah.
And if you're going to commit to it, you got to commit to all of it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I've got another question here, one from John here, which says, one thing we've always wondered about is having goals that span across a quarter. How do OKRs work when you've got that?
Oh, that's in my second edition.
Excellent.
You have to buy it. No, I'm not going to make people. So this one I end up arguing with Felipe Castro a bunch on, but I think it's possible to have milestone OKRs, and they aren't milestones like, okay, we're going to have the database done. They still have to be outcomes. So let's say you're building something that's going to take 9 months, like a baby, 3/4, and that's a big project. It's high risk. And if you think about what Lean tells us about it, we want to be able to evaluate whether we're going in the right direction as often as possible. So then you could say, okay, at 3 months, what would tell us we're going in the right direction in this big 9-month project? Would it be very positive early user tests and go to Lean for so many things? Wizard of Oz, concierge. Do we think the technology is going to be able to do this, right? So build some prototypes, figure out scaling, blah, blah. We have to answer those questions. So at 3 months, we should have to have a good sense of, we can actually build the thing. People are actually going to want it, and they're actually going to be willing to pay for it, classic Lean thinking. So if you can put those milestones at the end of each quarter, it's going to allow you with a huge project to not get sucked into it so far apart from your customers and everything else that when it comes out, it doesn't do anything. If that makes some sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now we're just about out of time here. So everyone, you've sent in a ton of great questions. I had to prioritize based on the ones that were actually short enough for me to parse while still talking to Christina. So I'm really sorry to get to everyone's really detailed questions, but thank you so much for taking part in this. And Christina, thank you so much for being a part of the conversation here today and answering everyone's questions and answering my questions.
Absolutely.
I've had a great time.
I want to say first, the second edition literally has so much information. So many of these questions that people ask are covered in it. If you can't afford the book, hit me up on Twitter and I will get you a digital version, and I will ask you to not share it with the world, though I think there's a lot of companies already on Scribd that, like, so many of my copies have been pirated.
Be good people.
Yeah, be good people, but you know what? I'd rather you have good information than I have another couple bucks. So just let me know if you can't afford it. But if you can't afford it, think of me and my poor children and my mortgage.
All right, everyone, grab your copy of Christina's new book, the second edition of Radical Focus. Everyone, this has been recorded, so it will be up on our YouTube channel, and you will be emailed a copy of it, the link to it, in the coming days, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much for joining for today's Product Expert series, and we will chat to you again soon. Thank you, everybody.
Awesome. Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.